I was a good-for-nothing, drifting aimlessly through life. I figured someone like me was destined to rot in the gutter. Then, one day, a transfer student arrived. She was a straight-A student, but incredibly ugly. Everyone mocked her, called her a monster. But in her eyes, I saw a reflection of my former self. So, on a whim, I helped her out. Little did I know that small act of kindness would lead to a persistent little shadow. Later, not wanting to hold her back from achieving her goals, I put on a tough act and threatened her. Don't flatter yourself. You're so ugly, I have absolutely zero interest in you. Though clearly hurt and scared, she stubbornly held her ground. Even if you say that, she retorted, I won't give up. Chapter 1. Inside Scoop. A transfer student is coming to Lao Gao's class later. My deskmate Gao Yuan dropped a bombshell during break time. Really? A transfer student this late in senior year? A beauty or a hunk? Someone immediately chimed in. A recruited academic superstar. Don't get your hopes up, though. This superstar's looks are hard to describe. What do you mean? Extra noses or mouths? No. Just use your imagination. I guarantee you'll never forget it after you see them. Gao Yuan said mysteriously. This immediately ignited everyone's enthusiasm, and the class erupted in discussion, imaginations running wild. A tumor on their face? Looks like venom? Probably an alien. Soon, Lao Gao walked into the classroom with the subject of everyone's gossip. Who knows how much of the discussion they overheard? The moment everyone saw the transfer student, the classroom fell dead silent. This transfer student was too frightening. Their nose seemed to have been bitten off by something, completely caved in, and their lips and surrounding area were covered in dense, horrifying keloids. Lao Gao said impassively, Let's have a new student introduce themselves. Hello everyone, my name is Zhou Qianqian. I'd been slumped over my desk, unresponsive, but at that moment, my ears perked up. No one knew, but I'm a voice person, and Zhou Qianqian's gentle, timid voice was exactly the type I loved. I glanced up at the new student, then looked away and continued lying down, trying to go back to sleep. But the increasingly blatant mocking discussions around me made me frown. That's too ugly. I'm definitely having nightmares tonight. Paying top dollar for a pair of eyes that haven't seen this woman. Everyone chattered away, one after another. Lao Gao slammed his hand on the desk and said sternly, Quiet! But he didn't reprimand the students who had spoken so unkindly, because he also disliked this academic superstar the school had recruited to boost its reputation. In his opinion, female students weren't as mentally strong as male students and were prone to inconsistent performance during exams. To be blunt, he was extremely sexist, and in his classes he almost never cared about or called on female students. Yet the school had foisted this so-called female academic superstar on him. If she performed well on the college entrance exam, it was expected, but if she didn't, who knew how the administration would question his teaching ability? He didn't believe girls could be better than boys. So, faced with this big problem, he wasn't going to prepare the class psychologically beforehand, or show respect for the new transfer student. He simply watched coldly as his nephew, Gao Yuan, led the jeering. Chapter 2. Zhou Qianqian, you go and sit with Gao Yuan. No way. I'll have nightmares. What if I don't sleep well and my grades drop? Gao Yuan, relying on the fact that the class teacher, Old Gao, was his uncle, refused directly. Old Gao was about to persuade his nephew that sitting next to a top student could improve his grades, especially since the third year of high school was a crucial period. Other students quickly chimed in. I don't want to sit with her either. Please, just looking at her shortens my lifespan, okay? Don't ever let her be my deskmate, or I'll go home and tell my dad to withdraw his investment. Everyone's reactions became increasingly excessive, reminding me of how I was ostracized and shunned in junior high school after being betrayed by my best friend. Gao Yuan, with your perpetually bottom-of-the-class grades, is there even any room for them to be affected? I looked at the instigator of this storm and said coolly, All right, quiet. Old Gao, seeing the situation about to spiral out of control, quickly interrupted me. Zhou Qianqian, you'll sit with Ji Xing. Hurry up. My attitude unchanged. I gathered the scattered textbooks on the desk to my side. Old Gao always disliked rebellious students like me, who had poor grades and didn't listen. To prevent me from influencing others, I had always sat alone, without a desk mate. So, placing Zhou Qianqian next to me avoided the hassle of rearranging other students, making it very convenient. Old Gao didn't expect this so-called top female student to achieve good results. After all, the size of Zhou Qianqian's previous school wasn't even 1/5 of their school. After Zhou Qianqian sat down, she cleared most of the desk, wishing she could shrink herself even smaller to avoid taking up more space. My face was full of bewilderment. Why are you hiding so far away? You're practically sitting in the aisle. Do I look like I'll eat you? No, thank you, Zhou Qianqian whispered. She was just used to her previous desk mates drawing a line down the middle, leaving her very little space. I don't even know what you're thanking me for. After my words trailed off, I laid my head down and went back to sleep. I never listened to old Gao's classes. I also rejected this class teacher from the bottom of my heart. After Zhou Qianqian sat up straight, she listened to the class while couldn't help but sneak glances at her deskmate. Unlike before, her new deskmate's face held only an indifferent expression, no disdain, no mockery, and no sense that she was strange or ugly, making her feel at ease. At this moment, the unease she felt from transferring schools quietly subsided. She actually hated changing to a new environment, but there was no way around it. Her mother had already accepted the principal's financial aid, so whether she adapted or not, she had to come to the new school. While I was catching up on sleep, Gao Yuan felt increasingly aggrieved. In his eyes, I was just an orphan child with no backing whatsoever, yet I dared to embarrass him in front of the whole class. He couldn't swallow this, and he kept thinking about how he had to settle the score with me after class. Chapter 3. The bell rang, and as soon as Mr. Gao stepped out of the classroom, Gao Yuan rushed over to me, slammed his hand on the desk, and yelled, "Ji Xing, what do you mean? Sticking up for that monster? Is it wrong to state the facts? Damn it, I've had enough of you. Who do you think you are?" Gao Yuan scowled, grabbed my collar, and yanked me out of my seat. "You're just a bastard. Can't even take care of yourself, and you want to stick up for others? Don't tell me you've got a thing for that monster? Ha! No way, right? A bastard and a monster, a match made in heaven." I didn't want to look up at this scum, so I straightened up, looking down at Gao Yuan. "You're such a clown. Who do you think you are? Oh wait, you're nothing. I'm going to teach you a lesson, you bastard." With that, Gao Yuan furiously punched me. I stumbled, hitting my left forehead on the metal ruler on the desk. Blood immediately flowed down my forehead. Without a word, I grabbed my chair and swung it at Gao Yuan's head. Holy shit! The blood on my face and my desperate ferocity scared Gao Yuan into dodging. It wasn't until he screamed that the onlookers reacted and rushed to break up the fight. "Ji Xing, are you crazy?" "I am crazy, so don't mess with me. Your forehead is bleeding. Where's the infirmary?" "I'll take you," Zhou Qianqian anxiously suggested. "Ji Xing, let's go see the school doctor." Xiao Peng, the only one in class close to me, grabbed my arm and pulled me out of the classroom. At the infirmary, the school doctor quickly stopped the bleeding and told me to lie down for a while to see if I felt dizzy. After I lay down, I waved Xiao Peng and Zhou Qianqian off to go back to class. Xiao Peng nodded and left, but Zhou Qianqian refused. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. This is all because of me." I looked at her guilt-ridden, tearful eyes and frowned. "Listen, I do what I do because I follow my heart. It has nothing to do with you. Why are you so eager to take the blame? From beginning to end, you only said hello. What did you do wrong? It's those who ridiculed and antagonized you who are wrong. Plastic surgery is so advanced these days. You can earn money and fix it later. I heard you're a top student. Work hard, go to a wider world, meet higher class people. Don't take these messy insults to heart." I sat up, patted Zhou Qianqian's shoulder, and looked at her with gentle but firm eyes. "You did nothing wrong. From beginning to end, you did nothing wrong." These words were like a key, unlocking the shackles that bound Zhou Qianqian's heart. "So, what if she's top of the class? She's so ugly it's disgusting. I guarantee, if she wanted to film an alien movie, she wouldn't need makeup. She could just play herself. It's just a joke. Isn't it true that she looks terrifying? You're so deformed. It's dirtying my hands to hit you. But there's nothing I can do. I'm in a bad mood today." No matter how much Zhou Qianqian tried to convince herself to ignore the malice, she was still affected. She had done nothing wrong, Yet she endured endless contempt, humiliation, and even bullying. She didn't dare cry. Experience told her that crying, screaming, and begging only excited the bullies, making them torment her even more. Just endure it quietly. When they get tired, she'll have a moment of peace. Her mother's rejection and indifference, coupled with the bullying from her classmates, formed a castle of shackles, imprisoning her, freezing all her emotions. For so many years, she numbly dragged this broken body along, not knowing what she was waiting for. Until now, Zhou Qianqian finally understood. She was waiting for someone to tell her, gently and firmly, "You did nothing wrong. It's not your fault you're bullied for your appearance. Don't take the blame for others' mistakes. You have a bright future, endless possibilities." Chapter 4. Zhou Qianqian cried harder and harder, as if she wanted to vent all the grievances she had accumulated over the years. This made me feel awkward, and all I could do was pat her back and comfort her. "It's okay. Don't cry. Everything will be all right." Zhou Qianqian just continued to cry loudly, showing no signs of calming down. I frowned, a vein throbbing in my temple. "Okay, I'm the one in the hospital bed. I'm the one injured. I'm the one who should be crying, right?" Hic! Zhou Qianqian hiccuped. I sighed helplessly, fished a candy out of my pocket, quickly tore open the wrapper, and stuffed it into Zhou Qianqian's mouth. She was actually interrupted by this sudden turn of events. "What is this?" Zhou Qianqian blinked blankly, but the sweetness in her mouth quickly gave her the answer. She looked up at her new desk mate, bathed in the afterglow. The golden sunlight seemed to plate the person with a layer of gold. The narrow, upturned phoenix eyes held a faint smile. The lips were thin, the black hair was like ink, and the features were delicate, like a meticulously sculpted work of Niwa. Hope, wrapped in sunlight, melted the haze in Zhou Qianqian's heart. Past suffering gradually fell apart, yet something seemed to be taking root and sprouting in the deepest part of her heart. Being able to come to this school, being able to meet this person in front of her, was really, really great. Zhou Qianqian's emotions gradually stabilized. A short while later, Gao Yuan was also carried into the infirmary by two classmates. Unexpectedly, before Gao Yuan could start his taunts, old Gao, having heard the news, rushed in. Old Gao's sharp eyes swept over me. "You little beast, raised without a mother, so young and already learning bad habits. Tell your guardian to come to school tomorrow." I hate it most when people mention my parents, as if avoiding this topic allows me to deceive myself that I haven't been abandoned. Old Gao's words were like ripping open my self-deceptive scar, causing a fierce glint to flash in my narrowed eyes as I gradually clenched my fists. "Teacher, your words are really sharp. As my homeroom teacher, think carefully. Have you ever seen anyone sitting in my seat during parent-teacher conferences? Maybe they've already died out there? If you want to see them, I can't help you relay the message. Why don't you go chat with them yourself?" A smile surfaced in my eyes, a sarcastic curve on my lips. I shrugged as if helpless, then casually picked up a scalpel from the table and walked towards the uncle and nephew. I'm an orphan without a father or mother. I don't know why I'm alive. Don't anyone try to blame me later, or I can't guarantee this knife won't end up on them. In an instant, everyone in the infirmary looked at me in shock, chilled to the bone. "Crazy. Ji Xing, you're fucking crazy." Gao Yuan was the only male heir in old Gao's family. It was no exaggeration to say that he grew up spoiled, with everything going his way. Although he was usually tyrannical at home, he had never seen such a scene. He watched me approach, trembling, too scared to resist. I took the knife and lightly made a cut on his left forehead, just like his own, and blood immediately flowed out. Gao Yuan screamed and backed away in fear. I stared at old Gao, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Teacher, be sure to ask my parents if they want to come to school. I've almost forgotten what they look like." Then I calmly lay back on the bed while playing with the scalpel in my hand. Would anyone argue with a madman? The answer, of course, is no. Chapter 5. Old Gao didn't dare stay any longer. He directed a few students to help Gao Yuan out of the infirmary and to an off-campus hospital to treat his wounds. After all, as I said, he had never met my parents. If this continued, and I was provoked into doing something drastic, there would be no going back. So he thought it over and decided to suppress the matter. They were in their final year of high school anyway. There was no need for more trouble. He would just ignore me from now on. After all, with Ji Xing's grades, he would never amount to anything. Old Gao thought to himself. The commotion in the infirmary was quickly embellished and spread into various versions. Everyone seemed to tacitly agree that Zhou Qianqian was under my protection. As a result, the other students didn't dare target Zhou Qianqian for a while. For Zhou Qianqian, this was a beautiful misunderstanding. Her learning environment had never been so peaceful, so she would unconsciously rely on me. At first, she worried about my injury and always stayed by my side. I didn't react much, only occasionally guiding her around the cafeteria, library, and other places. Gradually, Zhou Qianqian gleaned from the gossip that I didn't like people getting too close, so she started keeping a distance of 3 or 4 steps, trailing behind me like a little tail. I turned a blind eye to this, tacitly allowing it. It was their final year of high school, and the college entrance exam was fast approaching. I sincerely hoped this little study genius could get good results and have a good start in life. Therefore, this morning, right after class, when I walked to the classroom door and didn't see the familiar little study genius following me, I felt a little unaccustomed to it. I stopped, my eyes flickered for a moment, and finally, I couldn't help but turn around and walk to Zhou Qianqian's side. I knocked on her desk and asked, "Why aren't you going to the cafeteria? Why aren't you going to the cafeteria?" Zhou Qianqian's face instantly flushed red, and she replied softly, I got my period." I was silent for a moment, then awkwardly scratched my head. "Did you forget to bring sanitary pads?" Zhou Qianqian buried her head even lower. It came during the last class. I'll clean up later when there are fewer people." Without a second thought, I took off my school jacket and threw it into her arms. "Wrap this around yourself. I'll take you back to the dormitory." "Wrap this around yourself. I'll take you back to the dormitory." Zhou Qianqian took the jacket and shyly pursed her lips. "Thank you, Ji Xing. You're so nice." Hearing this, I raised an eyebrow, a smile spreading in my narrow eyes, but I didn't reply. After escorting Zhou Qianqian back to the dormitory, while she was tidying up, I thought about it and decided to go to the cafeteria to get her a meal. Zhou Qianqian insisted on keeping my jacket, repeatedly saying that she would wash it clean before returning it to me. I nodded indifferently, handed her the lunchbox, and headed back to the cafeteria. Chapter 6. My days at school have been getting tougher lately. Old Gao, my former homeroom teacher, had a laissez-faire attitude towards me. After the incident in the infirmary, he completely ignored me. Influenced by him, other teachers also paid me no attention. This led to me just drifting through each day, idle and undisciplined, completely oblivious to the concept of studying. But these past 2 days, Old Gao had to take a week off due to family matters, and the school assigned the homeroom teacher from the class next door to cover for him. Chao Rue is a beautiful teacher, barely in her 30s, and very skilled at classroom management. The number of students who reached the first-tier university entrance score in the class she taught last year hit a record high. So it seems reasonable that I've caught her attention. Excellent teachers never give up on any student easily and are adept at adapting their teaching methods. Right now, this is the 8th time she's called me to her office for a talk. It's only Chao Rue's second day covering for Old Gao. She didn't beat around the bush and asked directly, "Why were you sleeping in English class? Why were you sleeping in English class?" "Because I was sleepy." I shrugged indifferently. Chao Rue was taken aback for a moment, then sighed helplessly. "You don't have to be so honest. You could have tried to embellish that short sentence a little, like saying you stayed up too late doing homework and didn't have enough energy." "Teacher, are you teaching me to lie?" I chuckled. "Not really. I thought you would make an excuse, and then I would debunk each of your lies one by one, finally using some loving education to inspire you." Chao Rue sighed again. "Now my whole plan is ruined." This teacher is a bit dramatic. I couldn't help but laugh, but at least she lightened the serious atmosphere in the office. "So, Ji Xing, why don't you pay attention in class? If you don't work hard in your senior year, you'll never know how much potential you have. You'll never know how outstanding you could be. You'll never." "Teacher," I stopped smiling and interrupted her calmly. "Not everyone desires to be outstanding. I just want to live a quiet, ordinary life. I never intended to go to university." It's not that I don't appreciate her concern, it's just that I'm no longer willing to live a life where I strive with all my might but still can't see a clear future. It's too tiring and too meaningless. Chao Rue pondered for a moment, looking into my eyes. Can you tell me why? I lowered my head and remained silent, my mind filled with the scene of my abandonment. My hands clenched in a fist, and I didn't even care that my nails were digging into my palms, drawing blood. My attitude was clear. You can say whatever you want. I'm not listening. Chao Rue had no choice but to let me return to the classroom. Chapter 7. Ji Xing, are you okay? Zhou Qianqian asked with concern, noticing my low spirits. Her voice was gentle and soft, like a clear spring flowing by, suddenly calming my agitated heart. For someone sensitive to voices, it was impossible to resist a voice I found appealing. Leaning against the windowsill, my mood gradually calmed. I casually curled my lips upwards. What could be wrong? Just got scolded by the teacher. I'm used to it. My relationship with this top student was getting better and better. Perhaps it was because we were both isolated, so there was nothing strange about us sticking together. Moreover, I really liked Zhou Qianqian's voice and often couldn't help but want to tease her into saying a few more words. Suddenly, as if remembering something, I sat up straight and rummaged through my desk for a while before pulling out a piece of paper and handing it to Zhou Qianqian. It was a sketch I had casually drawn when I was bored. The Zhou Qianqian in the drawing had regular features, no ugly scars, no flaws in her appearance, and looked delicate and lovely. Zhou Qianqian's hand holding the drawing trembled slightly. She wasn't good with words, and in the end, could only bow deeply to me in gratitude. Ji Xing, thank you. I've told you how many times, you don't need to be so polite. It was just a casual drawing, I said, waving my hand dismissively. Zhou Qianqian carefully put the drawing away, meticulously placing it between the pages of a book as if afraid of staining or creasing it. I couldn't help but feel slightly amused. No need to be so careful. If you like it, I could take some time to draw a few more. Zhou Qianqian bit her lip and replied in a voice only she could hear. It's necessary. It's very important, Ji Xing. Since I was already slumped over my desk catching up on some sleep, I naturally missed this little exchange. I'd worked the night shift and pulled an all-nighter, so I was exhausted. But I hadn't lied to Chao Rue. Chapter 8. The second half of my senior year flew by, as if fast-forwarded. Winter break arrived quickly. I've been working my part-time job for a while now, leaving home at sunrise and returning under the moonlight. I especially enjoyed passing Phoenix Bridge on my way home. The sound of the flowing water was a feast for my ears. I've always been sensitive to sound. Unlike usual, this time there was a slender figure sitting on the railing. The bridge railing is dangerous. No one would climb up there unless they were contemplating suicide. I hesitated for a moment, but decided to intervene. You shouldn't hurt yourself for anyone or anything that isn't worth it. Come down first, and we can talk. If there's anything I can do to help, just tell me. The moment the figure heard my voice, they trembled, then turned around in disbelief. Ji Xing. The biting cold pierced through Zhou Qianqian's thin clothes. She was shivering. I was equally surprised, but quickly recovered, frowning as I pulled her down from the railing and draped my jacket over her. Come home with me first, then you can tell me what happened. Zhou Qianqian hadn't eaten all day. She was cold, hungry, and her legs were numb from sitting on the railing for so long. As soon as her feet touched the ground, she stumbled. I quickly steadied her, and finally, unable to bear it any longer, I squatted down and gestured for her to get on my back. Hurry up. It's freezing, and I gave you my jacket. I don't want to get sick. Zhou Qianqian seemed to always find my requests impossible to refuse. She obediently climbed onto my back, letting me carry her home. When we got home, I turned on the light and clearly saw the palm prints, tear stains, and faint despair on Zhou Qianqian's face. I frowned. Did someone bully you? My mom lost money gambling and was in a bad mood. I couldn't give her any money, so I became her punching bag. My expression turned icy. Besides your face, are there any other injuries? My back, arms, my whole body hurts. Zhou Qianqian nervously clutched the corner of her clothes. Sit on the sofa. I'll get you some medicine. I patted her head, exasperated. Have you been eating for nothing all these years? If someone hits you, hit them back. Besides, gambling is illegal. You could have called the police. You call yourself a top student. Why didn't you think of a way to protect yourself? All you could think of was jumping into the river. A rare look of panic crossed Zhou Qianqian's face. She replied, awkwardly, I thought I could just endure it until college. Then I could move far, far away, and things would get better. But I don't know why, Mom's been really unstable lately. She takes her anger out on me for no reason. I'd never experienced anything like this, so I couldn't offer any better advice. But after applying medicine to her arms and catching a glimpse of the dozens of ferocious, savage wounds on her pale back, I felt that things weren't so simple. Chapter 9. I'm taking you to the police station. Your injuries are beyond a family matter. This is abuse. I threw the medicine on the table, grabbed my jacket, and was about to take Zhou Qianqian out, but she seemed to have remembered some bad memories and crouched down in fear, holding her head and shaking it. No, don't hit me, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Seeing her like this, I became even angrier. Zhou Qianqian, look at me. Ji Xing. Forget it, I'm used to it. It's the senior year of high school now. I don't want any more complications to delay the college entrance exam. Zhou Qianqian looked at me with red, teary eyes, pleading continuously. Really? Since you're used to it, then apply the medicine and get out of here. Don't bother me. Zhou Qianqian didn't understand my anger. After applying the medicine, she really tidied up her clothes and was about to leave. Seeing her push the door open without looking back, my eyes darkened, and I grabbed her wrist. I'm really scared of you. Are you addicted to being beaten? You want to go back? I impatiently pushed her back onto the sofa. If you want to stay at my house and you're not afraid of others gossiping, I can reluctantly agree to let you stay until school starts. You're a boarding student anyway. Zhou Qianqian's pupils suddenly shrank, and her eyes slowly filled with emotion and grievance. She wanted to pour everything out to me. My mother says I'm too ugly, that I cause her bad luck, that she always loses money or blames me for not being more outstanding so she can get more financial aid from the school. No one will like an ugly monster like me. Mom only raises me because she's my mother, so I've always thought since I was young. I wonder if I were prettier or worked harder, would my mother love me more and wouldn't always hit me? Children who are too sensible are always used to finding the reason within themselves. Moreover, Zhou Qianqian's living environment from childhood was that everyone treated her as a disgusting monster. They wished she would disappear from this world. She was used to being beaten, humiliated, and mocked. I only felt heartache. I thought, if Zhou Qianqian had a choice, she probably wouldn't want to come into this world. But why should a child bear the mistakes made by adults? I slowly squatted down, carefully raised my hand, and gently stroked the scars on Zhou Qianqian's face, and said seriously, someone will truly love you. Don't easily deny yourself. Chapter 10. Although I didn't care about gossip if a girl lived in my place, I still spent the night at an internet cafe for Zhou Qianqian's sake. Since I brought Zhou Qianqian home, she'd been smiling a lot more. I also accompanied her back to her house a few times to retrieve many study materials. While she was preparing for the college entrance exam, I was busy earning money. We were both busy with our own things, but it was surprisingly harmonious, and our unspoken understanding deepened. That day, I just got off work, took a shower, and was about to go into the kitchen to make something to eat when I saw Zhou Qianqian holding a bowl of soup and walking towards me. Try it, is it good? I just learned how to make it. Her face was full of expectation. I took the bowl and tasted it. It was very salty. It's okay, but your main task now is to study hard. Leave the cooking to me after I get off work. If there isn't enough time, take some money from the drawer and get a bowl of noodles downstairs. After drinking the salt water in the bowl in one gulp, I said with a straight face, "Oh, I know. I just saw you working so hard and wanted to help you with something." Zhou Qianqian lowered her head shyly. Actually, she had tasted the soup too. It was very salty. She was originally going to pour it out, but suddenly, for some unknown reason, she kept it. She carefully glanced at me, thinking she was being very discreet, but she didn't know that I had already noticed these small actions of hers. Go and tidy up the table. I'll cook. I calmly looked away, but my heart skipped a beat. I'm not naive when it comes to emotions, and I've seen a lot of these young girls' infatuations. Zhou Qianqian's current behavior clearly showed that she was interested in me. My eyes darkened. When I decided to take her in, it was simply because I felt sorry for her and saw my former self in her, so I wanted to help her. I never imagined that Zhou Qianqian would turn her gratitude into a budding love just because she received some care from me. It seems that some things need to be clarified, I murmured. How can someone like me hold her back? Chapter 11. I just made up my mind, but before I could act, an unexpected visitor arrived. Standing in the dim hallway were a dozen bodyguards in black, surrounding an elegant, dignified woman. I felt like I'd seen her somewhere before. Then I noticed the necklace around her neck, and it hit me. Wasn't this Chewy Ran, the wealthy businesswoman often featured on TV? Chewy Ran's life was legendary. Her father was a real estate tycoon, her mother a foreign princess. Despite her privileged background, she was remarkably capable. At a young age, she'd made it onto the top 50 richest list through her own efforts. She was known for her generosity and philanthropy. I often saw news about Chewy Ran, but I couldn't understand why someone so wealthy would come to my home. "Excuse the intrusion," Chewy Ran said, her voice trembling slightly but firm. "I'm here to see my daughter, Chanchian." Zhou Chanchian, who'd come to the door upon hearing the commotion, stood frozen. I quickly recovered and invited them in. Chewy Ran seemed to understand my intentions and didn't refuse. She simply gestured for the bodyguards to wait outside. Chewy Ran looked at Zhou Chanchian's scarred face with heartache and pity. Her eyes welled up. After a long silence, she finally began to recount the events of the past, her eyes red-rimmed. Chapter 12. Back then, Chewy Ran, the daughter of a wealthy family, fell in love with a poor young man, Zhou Hengxing. Her parents agreed to the marriage on the condition that Zhou Hengxing become a live-in son-in-law. But Zhou Hengxing was a man with wicked ambitions. Not only did he cheat on Chewy Ran while she was pregnant, impregnating his mistress at the same time, but he also switched their newborns, planning to raise his mistress's child to usurp the Chu family's fortune. Chewy Ran never suspected her husband until she accidentally overheard his plot with his mistress. She then began to investigate. The more she investigated, the more shocked she became. It turned out that Zhou Hengxing had always felt looked down upon by the Chu family, which warped his mind and twisted his personality. The husband who shared her bed had long harbored a deep hatred for her. Since Zhou Hengxing showed no mercy, Chewy Ran decided to be equally ruthless. Swiftly and decisively, she dealt with both Zhou Hengxing and his mistress, sending them to prison and arranging for them to be well taken care of inside. The woman Zhou Chanchian thought was her mother was actually the mistress. Recently, she had caught wind of something, and driven by fear, she beat Zhou Chanchian severely. As for why she didn't just kill her, the mistress simply didn't have the guts. The reason Zhou Chanchian and I were able to get study materials from her house without any trouble was that the mistress had already run away. She was always timid and cowardly, which is why she agreed to Zhou Hengxing's plan to switch the babies. She was so unstable even during her escape that she accidentally dropped the baby, causing Zhou Chanchian's disfigurement. The story is truly twisted and dramatic. Even after I saw Chewy Ran off, Zhou Chanchian remained in a daze. No wonder she's always been hitting and scolding me, even wishing me dead. So, I'm not her child, Zhou Chanchian murmured, tears streaming down her face. The motherly love she had longed for was nothing but an illusion. I silently handed her a tissue, saying nothing. After all, something like this is difficult for anyone to bear, and outsiders can't offer any real comfort. Chapter 13. For several days after that, Zhou Chanchian was in a dazed state. To prevent her from doing anything rash, I had to postpone my original plans. Fortunately, Chewy Ran soon visited again. She slapped the paternity test document on the table, which confirmed their mother-son relationship. By this time, Zhou Chanchian's emotions had mostly settled, and she gradually accepted the truth. I tactfully left the house to the mother and daughter to catch up. They talked for a long time, and eventually, Zhou Chanchian agreed to go home with Chewy Ran. But before that, her only condition was to say a proper goodbye to me. When I returned home and saw the bodyguards in the hallway and Zhou Chanchian's packed luggage, I guessed her decision and felt relieved. Zhou Chanchian couldn't hold back and threw herself into my arms, crying and saying. She said she wants to take me abroad to repair my face, to receive a better education overseas, and to make up for the maternal love I've missed for over a decade. I couldn't refuse. That's a good thing, I said, gently patting her back to comfort her. But I can't bear to leave you. Ji Xing, Zhou Chanchian looked up, staring at me intently. I like you. If I really recover my looks, will you? Before she could finish, I interrupted her. You should never have suffered these hardships in the first place. Now it's just returning the happiness that was delayed for you. I ruffled her hair and pushed her away from my embrace, stealing my heart. From now on, you'll be a high-class young lady. It's best not to associate too much with a small-time hoodlum like me. It's not good for either of us. This was also a subtle rejection. I believe Zhou Qianqian was smart enough to understand my implication. Sure enough, her eyes immediately welled up with tears. Do you look down on me? Do you think I'm not good enough for you? Zhou Qianqian, let me be frank. The reason I helped you and took you in was simply because I pitied you. I would have done the same for anyone, even a cat or a dog. So please don't flatter yourself. I have no feelings for you whatsoever. Perhaps startled by the feigned fierceness in my eyes, Zhou Qianqian's body trembled violently. But even though she was clearly scared, she still stubbornly insisted. Even if you say that, I won't give up. Liking you is my business. Even if you don't accept it, I won't give up. With that, she pressed something into my arms with tear-filled eyes, then ran down the stairs quickly, giving me no chance to react. I opened the crumpled paper in my hand to find a blank check signed by Chu Yiran. Without thinking, I knew this was one of Chu Yiran's compensations to Zhou Qianqian. This little fool had just given it to me, not even worried that I might fill in any amount. You know, if I wrote down a number and went to the bank, that huge sum of money would be mine. After a while, I chuckled and used a lighter to burn the check completely. Do I look like that kind of casual person? Chapter 14. 5 years later. As usual, I woke up at noon, had a simple lunch, and rode my bicycle to a boxing gym in the city center. I didn't get into university after the college entrance exam that year, and I didn't react much to it. Instead, I worked even harder. A year ago, with some savings, I took over this boxing gym and started teaching students. Although the income wasn't very high, it was more than enough to support myself. As soon as I reached the front desk, I saw a striking bouquet of red roses. Tisk, who's so cheesy, sending such bright roses to chase a girl, I said jokingly to the young lady at the front desk. Unexpectedly, the girl covered her mouth, stifling a laugh. Boss, these flowers are from a beautiful woman for you. I roll my eyes. You've gotten brave, haven't you? Daring to joke with the boss now. It's not a joke. Look, there's even a card. See for yourself. Before I could say anything, the girl thrust the flowers into my arms and ran off. Boss, I have an exam this afternoon. I'm taking some time off. Watching her hurrying back, I shook my head helplessly, but I was curious about the beautiful woman she mentioned. In the past few years, because of my looks, I had indeed attracted many girls who confessed their feelings to me. But without exception, I rejected them all without hesitation. For no other reason, I simply didn't want to be a burden to others. However, when I saw the familiar name on the card, I froze on the spot. You were my impulse, but also my love after careful consideration. I'm back. Can you give me a chance? Zhou Qianqian. Chapter 15. After Zhou Qianqian left, I hadn't had any contact with her. I wasn't surprised she could find me, given her current status, but I didn't expect she still remembered me. Really? I sighed helplessly. The flowers in my hand suddenly became a hot potato, too awkward to throw away or keep. All right, boss, the beautiful woman who sent you the flowers is waiting for you in your office. Hurry up. The young girl, who should have left, poked her head back in. Go for it. Try to bring back a boss lady. I'm still waiting for you to give me wedding candies. After saying this, she finally left in a whirlwind. Walking to the office door, I hesitated for the first time. It was to avoid holding Zhou Qianqian back that I'd said those harsh words. What attitude should I face her with now? Before I could dwell on it for long, the office door was pulled open from the inside, and a delicate face appeared before me. Very familiar, just like the sketch I had drawn of Zhou Qianqian. With her restored appearance, she was truly stunningly beautiful. I tugged at the corner of my mouth and greeted her first. Long time no see. Besides that, don't you have anything else to say to me? Zhou Qianqian's personality had also become much more poised and graceful. Seeing this, I felt very gratified. I casually placed the flowers on the coffee table and poured 2 cups of tea. The flowers are nice, but unfortunately, I've never liked these things. Then what do you like? Zhou Qianqian looked at me earnestly. She had actually returned to the country a while ago and had come looking for me immediately, but she hadn't dared to appear in front of me. My harsh words back then had indeed left a shadow on her. She was afraid that being too proactive would push me further away. She had wanted to make a thorough plan, but things didn't go as expected. A while ago, she suddenly saw a young girl by my side, and she immediately panicked. After all, she had also taken advantage of my soft heart and stayed by my side for so long. She was afraid that someone else would snatch the person she liked. She acted rashly, only to realize it was a misunderstanding. She wanted to leave, but the young girl told her about the countless pursuers I'd had over the years, and the bitterness in her heart couldn't help but rise. The girl not only chatted with her about my life, but after learning about their story, she excitedly offered to help her. One thing led to another, and it resulted in the current situation. After calming down, Zhou Qianqian couldn't help but curse herself inwardly for her impulsiveness. Seeing that I didn't answer for a long time, Zhou Qianqian's eyes reddened. Do you hate seeing me? No one knew that I was actually a sucker for certain voices, and Zhou Qianqian's gentle, timid voice was exactly the type I found endearing. I finally gave in, decided to have a good talk with her. I sat up straight and looked at Zhou Qianqian with curiosity. You say you like me, but what do you think you like about me? I thought I made it very clear back then. The reason I helped you was out of sympathy for the weak. Of course, you can also understand it as me helping the self who was once abandoned and ostracized. Your so-called feelings are nothing more than mistaken gratitude for love, and your current obsession is only because I rejected you back then. If you think about it carefully, you'll realize that you actually like the me you've imagined. That's not it, Zhou Qianqian said anxiously. From the first time you stood up for me, you left a mark on my heart. She anxiously wanted to explain, but as she spoke, she felt wronged. I don't know when I fell in love with you. Maybe it was the first time you told me that it wasn't my fault that I was bullied, or the first time you shielded me and retorted those sarcastic words. I don't know. When I came to my senses, you were all I could think about. I know I'm a monster. I don't deserve you, but I still want to tell you, Ji Xing, I like you. Zhou Qianqian almost shouted the last sentence, as if it had exhausted all her courage, her face filled with determination. At this point, if I didn't react, I wouldn't be much of a man. So I sighed lightly, got up from my seat, walked to the other side of the sofa, and slowly crouched down, looking directly into Zhou Qianqian's eyes. I tried to use the gentlest tone possible. Why are you crying? I'm not crying, Zhou Qianqian insisted. Although I don't know what about me is worth liking, since you, a girl, have chosen me again and again, I shouldn't avoid it. I looked at her seriously. I admit that I do treat you differently from others, but it's not entirely out of romantic feelings. I should have known from the very beginning when I started defending her. You should also know what my childhood was like, so I've always kept my distance from things like feelings. I'm just a small-time hoodlum who lives day by day. I can't guarantee that I can do a good job of liking you, and I can't give you any promises. Zhou Qianqian. Even so, do you still want to like me? I calmly expressed my thoughts, and then, in the brief silence, nervously waited for Zhou Qianqian's verdict. After a while, Zhou Qianqian suddenly hugged me, sobbing, yes. At that moment, I unexpectedly felt a hint of sweetness in my heart. Perhaps I really could give myself a chance, try to overcome the hurdle of my childhood, and move towards a different future? My mind was filled with thoughts, but I smiled at Zhou Qianqian. Then, I'll have to trouble you to guide me in the future, girlfriend. Zhou Qianqian's smile was unconcealed. Yes, please guide me to my boyfriend.